It's time for some business news for you now. I'm joined for that by Charlotte Pellegrin. Hello there.
Hi, Kat.
And you're starting us off with a very big story from right here in France, one of the biggest companies in France, in fact, PSA, the car maker. It's announced that it is indeed buying the European business of General Motors.
That's absolutely right. The French group, which already makes Peugeot and Citroen cars, will be buying General Motors' European arm for 2.2 billion euros. Well, this deal includes the Opel and Vauxhall brands and should make PSA the second biggest car maker in Europe behind Volkswagen with 17% of market share. It also pushes PSA ahead of its French rival Renault-Nissan. The European arm of GM Financial will also be changing hands and be brought into the fold of PSA.
So what does this mean then for the future of Opel?
Well, it's worth noting that Opel has been running at a loss for decades now, which is the main reason why General Motors is getting rid of it. But PSA is betting it could turn things around. PSA CEO Carlos Tavares is hoping the operation will lead to savings of $1.7 billion per year by 2026 and is aiming for Opel to have a 2% profit margin by 2020. There are challenges, though. PSA is already at overcapacity across its European plants and will now take on an additional 6 assembly plants and 40,000 employees. Tavares has explained, though, that PSA has no intention of closing Opel sites and that Vauxhall sites in the UK could be useful in case of a hard Brexit.
And that, as they say, is another story. Right now, let's take a look at the latest market action then.
Well, in Europe, we're seeing indices slightly in negative territory, although PSA opened close to 5% higher at the close. At the open, in Paris. You can see the Paris CAC down 0.4%, the London FTSE down 0.3%, and the DAX in Frankfurt down 0.40%. Deutsche Bank dropped over 6% in Frankfurt after announcing it was raising 8 billion euros in shares. And we're seeing a mixed picture for Asian indices this morning, mostly over concerns of geopolitical risks after North Korea fired multiple ballistic missiles, 3 of which landed in Japan's exclusive economic zone. That's in the waters. The Nikkei closed down 0.46% on that news. You can see the Shanghai Composite in China up by 0.5% and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong up 0.2%.
Well, that does lead us fairly neatly on to China. We've got some economic news from there about the growth target that's just been announced by the authorities. Tell us more.
Well, that's actually the reason why Chinese indices have been on the rise this morning. Premier Li Keqiang announced that the growth target for 2017 would be around 6.5%. That's lower than the GDP growth for 2016, which marked the slowest expansion of the Chinese economy in 26 years. The Premier said the country was facing a big challenge in transitioning from an export-driven economy to one directed at its internal market. He used the metaphor of a butterfly struggling to emerge from a chrysalis. Alexander Hurst has more.
China may have cut its economic forecast, but it's still a number that would make the United States or Western Europe swoon. 6.5%, enough to make China the world's largest economy by 2030, says a new report from PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Obviously, it's not as fast as the 10% growth it was achieving a few years ago, but that's quite normal as the economy matures, as it rebalances itself towards domestic consumption.
Many countries that attempt the transition from export-led manufacturing to a robust internal market get caught in the middle-income trap, failing to attain the per capita wealth of advanced service-based economies.
On one hand, it is necessary for us to maintain this growth because our population is approaching 1.4 billion. Employment is a huge issue. Without quality growth, it is hard to create jobs.
In its annual report, Xi Jinping's government says it is focused on both mitigating financial risk and maintaining investment, which has been at 40% of GDP. However, analysts warn that the investment has not always been efficient, leading to hundreds of state-owned zombie firms with high debt and overcapacity. And PwC says its forecast assumes a global economy open to trade, something that could become less certain as Donald Trump has threatened protectionist measures, while at Davos, the Chinese president defended free trade.